And we are back. Welcome into another edition, easy for me to say, of the Rice Football Blue and Gray Preview Show. I'm your host, Matthew Bartlett, director of The Roost, joined as I am every week by Rice Owl's voice, JP Heath. This week, we're here to talk about the UConn Huskies, some Jim Mora trivia, I've been told, and the first, I guess, non-conference game split in the middle of conference games against a team that used to be in the conference that Rice is now, but is no more. Did you follow all that, JP?
Well, it made sense to me, but I've been prepping. Hopefully the audience, we're bringing them up to speed too. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. And for those who might not be in on the joke, for a good while, UConn was in the American Conference and Rice scheduled them as a non-conference game. They left the American and now UConn's on the schedule. So when I was doing my prep work before the season, it did not dawn on me that this was a non-conference game as quickly as it should have. Like, they've been out of the American for 2 or 3 years at least. So
yeah, but once we get this realignment days, to give us a little grace, it's you have to get used to it for a little bit for the outer regional folks to kind of seep into your knowledge too. But yeah, we definitely know this is a non-conference game now for any UConn folks that are lurking in. We know this is a non-conference game. We don't know where Tampa is. At least one of us didn't or knew what it was called a couple weeks ago, callback. But we do know that UConn is a non-conference game, and we know that it's in Connecticut.
Where is the University of Connecticut based?
That would be Storrs, correct?
Storrs, Connecticut.
Right?
I believe that is correct.
Okay, yeah. Don't.
That's because that's what they all, the women's basketball brackets, they always go regional by the top seed, and Storrs, Connecticut has hosted for a billion years because UConn's women's basketball is very good.
Well, now
we're covering all disciplines here.
I'm on their website. They actually have East Hartford. Yeah, so it's
officially East Hartford.
Yeah, because I was that dawned on me. That was my initial response, and we have East Hartford. So Tampa, East Hartford. See, we're learning all sorts of things. We're a curious.
This is really your geography update of the week every Wednesday around this time. But we'll cool the geography for just a little bit. We'll get into a couple things. I got one question to ask you off the top, and then I'll plug the Roost pod that me and my co-host Carter did this week, where we kind of went deep into the weeds, into the ECU game and kind of unpacking that. But how do you feel just emotionally after the East Carolina win?
That's a great way to put it. I feel a lot better now. At the time, yes, a win is a win. And as Coach Blumgren was quick to remind Jason, our sideline guru, hey, it wasn't pretty. It's not going to win any beauty pageants, but man, that is not flipping matter now. You got to win. And like Coach elaborated in his presser yesterday, and to me Monday night on his show, Acme Oyster House, every Monday, except not the next 2 Mondays, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it looks. And for them to be able to play, to make it full inception, because he gave you props yesterday for bringing it up right after the game, for them to be able to win when not playing close to their best, that says a lot about the development of this team. And I know we have had other JT Daniels effusive praise segments and long conversations, but man, what he did was, I don't want Rice fans to ever forget that. He willed them. It was a team effort, obviously, but he willed them to get that in position. I know you're such an ardent supporter of the broadcast to always listen and help me out when I make one of my many gaffes, but Dean Connors joined us after the game from the locker room, and he said, I don't think y'all realize what just happened here. Like, JT came back from the dead, what he went through during the week. So that's what I'll remember, it being an ugly win, but it still looks pretty on paper, and the way JT threw for 200 and change, but still got them that W.
And then after watching that performance, I agree, pretty spot on. This was not an A or a B game, might not have been a C game. It was not pretty, but they won. And then after watching him, JT is like, he's so incredible at making plays off schedule. Like he does well in the pocket and he can make the right reads and he can play quarterback. But when the pocket breaks down, when he has to escape and move, his ability to keep his eyes down the field and deliver a ball accurately when there's people in his way is just, it's second to none. And I'm going to say this quietly now, but it's going to get consistently louder as the season goes on. If you're making a list of the greatest quarterbacks in Rice football history, it's going to be really, really hard to keep JT out of the top 5. Think about it. Everybody listening, go make your list. Got Chase Clement, Tommy Kramer. It's going to be really, really hard after the season this guy is having to keep them off the list. So as long as we got JT, we'll be all right. That's kind of what Dean was saying. Coaching staff so far this year. And on one leg or not, looks like JT hopefully should be good to go this week. At least that's the current plan.
Yeah, and to second what you said, I've been thinking, and you and I have talked off air about this, how I think it's probably hands down, he's the greatest Rice quarterback since Tommy Kramer. But as far as, I mean, the 08 team might end up being better than this Rice team. Conversation another day, but what JT's doing, yeah, it's Tommy Kramer, and then it's pretty much everybody else. So he's in at least that 1A conversation in this humble guy's opinion. But I defer. I respect that so many people have seen so many more games than I have. But I love Taylor McClard.
That's the best part.
Yeah,
that's the best part, right?
Yeah.
Like we can quibble and say, like, we're having a discussion. Like the fact that we can have a discussion. If you would have said before the season, when the announcement that JT is coming to Rice, you'd have said, yeah, he could be in the running for, one of the better quarterbacks this program has seen in a while. I would have signed. I'm in. But watching him do what he's doing, it's special, man. That's my takeaway from the ECU game. You can play ugly. Defense can have a bad day until the fourth quarter when they cranked it up and I need to ask Josh Piercy if he knows who Quentin Coriat is, because the hit he had on that ECU defender had flashbacks, man. Yeah, but as long as you have JT, one more point. It worked out. So this concludes your annual or your weekly JT appreciation segment and our recap of ECU. Who do we just play? On to the next one, which is UConn, which a lot of actually cross sections with some ties and interactions he's had with Bloom in the past, with Tui. It was here with UCLA when they came to Rice a couple years ago. So even though this is actually the first ever meeting between UConn and Rice on the football field, it may be not as unknown to Rice and the Rice staff as some of the other opponents they faced.
Yeah, some quick Jim Mora trivia. Do you know his first college football game coaching was against who? Don't think too hard about it.
That's a great question. Stanford.
It was against Rice. And the reason I'll always remember that is guess whose very first broadcast for the Rice Owls came August 30th of 2012.
No way.
Yeah, I'll always remember that one. And I was reminded that little joker Chuck Poole, he texts me something during the week because they never want the attention. So what do? I completely
bring it to them.
Give them the attention that they don't want, but they deserve. They always say at the closing remarks, they make us sound smarter than we are. But in that game, when Jim Mora brings UCLA to Rice, not only was it this guy, his first action that somehow made the game notes, which I was very upset about in a playful way. So UCLA won that one, but current Texans kicker, Kaimi Fairburns. You're a Texans fan, right? Am I saying that name right? Am I remembering that right?
I'm
It's
talented at many things. Pronunciation might not be one of them.
yeah, I guess leave
Fairburn?
it.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
leave it to the
Sorry,
speaking.
Kaimi.
But also in that game, Cam Nwosu, I'll remember this. He blocked 3 PATs in the first half, and that set an NCAA record by blocking 3 first half PAT. Cam Nwosu, great linebacker for the Owls. And Tui, Al's OC now, was on that UCLA staff.
Mm-hmm.
He has that strong connection with Jim Mora. I heard during the week quarterback coach, but I also heard I see in writing that he was maybe his QBs and tight ends, but he coached the tight end. So
I think
there's
he did both over his stint there.
okay. So there's your Jim Mora little nuggets there coming in before we do some more deep dive on them.
Yeah, so unfamiliar but familiar. And it's just kind of interesting. All those, we had this conversation a week ago when we talked about Mike Houston and his relationship with head coach Mike Bloomgren and those ties, the coaching circle. This is going to be is this our 6 degrees of separation between Mike Bloomgren and whoever the head coach is on the other team? We'll do this every week. I bet you we wouldn't have to go that far. It'd be pretty easy.
Yeah, he knows a lot of people. Like I always say, these coaches, they know everybody, and it always fascinates me. You get into basketball and baseball, it doesn't seem to be as wide ranging, but yeah, these football coaches, they're thick as thieves. They are.
Yeah, they get around, and it'll be fun to have one more game on the docket. I'm kind of setting up the stage for this one against Jim Mora. I had some conversations with some folks going into the season, just trying to figure out, because Jim Mora takes over UConn last year, a hire that for many people was kind of out of left field. He had been at UCLA, had his ties in the NFL, and then boom, UConn hires Jim Mora. Like there's not a regional connection there or anything that kind of put him on the top of the candidates list. He ends up there and everyone's like, I don't really know, man. And then they win, I think, was it 7 games last year, 6 games last year?
Yeah,
They
six
go
and
to a bowl
seven
game.
last year. Yeah.
Yeah, 6 and 7. That's what it was. 6 and 7. They go to a bowl game as kind of a surprise team. And they're actually one of the teams that is putting Rice on the hot seat last year as they try and await their fate to get in with 5 wins. So they're the surprise team last year. Then it comes to 2023, and it just hasn't gone well, man. The hype and the close wins that have not translated, they're coming in 0-5 and might have had one of the more painful losses that I can remember in college football last weekend, when they rally in the final minute, drive down the field, and score what should be the game tying touchdown, only to have the extra point blocked. So it is, you're down bad. This is a team that, as they come to Rice Stadium, is down bad. And I think we heard a lot of the right things yesterday at the Owls press conference, with a defensive back, Marcus Williams, talked about the respect they have for this program and their approach. And so did Mike Bloomgren, talking about how they're playing their best football right now, and they have not quit. They've said all the right things. The real test for Rice and this Rice team right now is you're looking at 3-2. You want to be 500 at least going into the bye, but you really want to be better than that. You can go to 4-2 with the win. How much does this non-conference game, do you think, how significant is it in the grand scheme of things, as we've kind of turned our attention to the American? But man, a win here against a team that, air quotes, you should beat, it kind of feels like it's needed.
Yeah, on a couple levels. One, it's the march to whatever your opinion is, 6, 7, 8 wins, whatever your win prediction was. If it was lower than that, they're obviously probably exceeding your expectations at this point from the Rice perspective. But how do you handle success? You hear that all the time on different sports, different levels. You're going to smell yourself. You're going to eat the cheese, as Bill Parcells used to say. But I've not gotten any indication that they are doing that right now. But they are playing a team that they should beat. They are as heavy a home favorite as they have been in my time here. So, my blunt way of saying it, that doesn't matter. For them, for anyone to think that Rice is overlooking UConn, they just don't understand. Rice is definitely tuned in. They have all the respect for the Huskies. And I would say, from a personal opinion, where could Rice get off overlooking anybody at this point? They haven't done what they want to do and think they can do down the line yet. So no, they're not. They're not smelling themselves. They are not overlooking anybody. Do you want to break down kind of their schedule now and their road to 0-5?
Yeah, I do.
Because it'd be nice if we had the snazzy production team to put up the graphics here, but they played at our boy Roz. They hosted our boy Roz, NC State, and they lost by 10 there. That was a game where North Carolina State had a multiple touchdown lead for a lot of that game, but UConn clawed back in it. You'll detect a theme here. They got blown out against Georgia State 35-14, a very good Sun Belt program traditionally. And we know what FIU has done. FIU's been a lot better than people think this year. They lost to them, and I was just looking at the play-by-play when we were working through our technical goblins. That game stalled at the 12-ish yard line as they were driving. They took it at the 48. 2-minute drill went down and almost came back to tie that one. They hosted Duke. Duke, everybody should know, nationally ranked this year. They've had a very good season and barely lose to Utah State. Not the greatest of teams the last couple years, but traditionally they have been very solid. So, like Coach Bloomgren told me Monday, this is the best 0-5 team in the nation, because I was talking to him off air before that too. Like, hey, I'm looking at it. I read a lot of the preview magazines about UConn. It's like, they're very good structure. Like, you went on in detail about what they went through last year and rallying to get a bowl. This is still a good team coming in here at 0-5, and people can scoff at that. Hey, I don't mind being laughed at. I won't be the first or the last time, but this is not a team that Rice has any business overlooking, because I surely don't think they are, and I'm not counting any eggs before they hatch with this one too.
Yeah, I think you're right. Rice has not done enough to earn the benefit of the doubt to be able to overlook anybody. They're not there yet. I think what we saw, and to back us up a couple weeks ago when they played Texas Southern, you say, hey, this is a game that you should win, and you should win handedly. And they did that. And then you go forward, and I think if you're stacking up the teams, this is the weakest team other than Texas Southern that Rice has played so far this year. They're a double-digit favorite at home. This is another game that, yeah, they might not be FCS bad, but they got some talent. They got some players. A quarterback was around and started some games at Penn State. So he's not just a scrub. So I'm not trying to hype up UConn, but I am saying this is a game that you can show me a lot. You beat Texas Southern, by what, 40 some odd, 50 some odd points. If you can go take care of business and hold serve against UConn, now you're showing me, yeah, we can beat the teams that we're supposed to beat, which is frankly another spot where we haven't seen this program get, unless it's been a complete vast talent gulf like it was between them and Texas Southern. I think the talent gulf is much narrower in this game. I think Rice still has the better roster. I think they have a better roster by a good wide margin, and there's no JT Daniels on the other side. So yeah, we expect Rice to win this game. Rice needs to show that they can win this game, if for nothing else, no other reason than to kind of get their own monkey off their back. I think, I talked to people, the Charlotte game from last year, still, try not to bring it up, but it still irks in the back of some people's heads of just that an evidence that they haven't quite gotten over the hump, where, the best teams have bad days, but the best teams don't roll over that very often and just not show up. And so that's what we need from Rice this weekend. We need them to show up and to, do their part. And I think it's interesting. We kind of get through, we can jump into the roster a little bit, what they're facing. Tyquan Robinson, the quarterback who we were talking about, just a minute ago, completing 58% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks, has done a pretty good job and looked the part coming back in relief.
You getting this right here?
Yes, I got it now. And then I will tell you, I knew about Victor Rosa before the year, and especially just watching he had some highlight plays last year that kind of as UConn was going on their run. I think he might be one of the best, if not the best, offensive skill player that UConn has on this roster, which is really interesting because something Rice has done really, really well so far is contain the running game, especially from opposing running backs. So you can shut down Victor Rosa, you can shut down the running game, make UConn one-dimensional on offense, and that's where I think you start to feel a lot better about how this game can play out.
Yeah, and you might have a bit your Scoops Bartlett here. We call you on the street. You might have better insight about what happened to Devontae Houston, and I've not plugged in. Generally, kind of pulling the curtain back. I talk about it on the air, so it's not really pulling a curtain back, but we share updates on teams with different broadcasters. I haven't had that one yet with their great announcer Mike Crispin yet. But Devontae Houston disappeared from the depth chart and even off the roster. So I don't know what happened there. But Cam Edwards has been running the football a little bit, but you see over 4.5 a tote. Jalen Mitchell, who had some talent, and Louisville transfer, a guy that has not gotten a lot of run. But this is a definite pro-style offense that can open it up just a little bit. And the tight end chart here does not do it justice. I have room for 3. You said I'm going to show you their notes. A little off mic vamping here. Guess how many tight ends? You probably already know the answer, but guess how many tight ends are on the UConn depth chart? They do the old or. We're always one to be petty. This is not pettiness, by the way. This is just observation.
Hey, and this is saying because I think Rice probably has, I believe they only have 2 on the 2 deep listed, but
Yeah.
they got 6 or 7, 8 guys in there. UConn, you got to tell me, I'm guessing 5 or 6. They got a lot of dudes.
Your depth charts. They've got 6 guys on the depth chart at tight end. So it's going to be a lot of
fantastic
double tights, even 3 tight ends, and coach even revealing to us, for those that didn't watch the press, I always encourage you to get a lot of meat on the bone when coach talks ball. But a lot of 13 personnel, 1 back and 3 tight ends that we'll see. So this will be style against style here, not opposing styles. We always talk about, hey, how would that look? No, these are 2 teams. You better settle in when you're punching up the game and obviously syncing up Nate and me. You better be there in a hurry. There's going to be a lot of ground and pound on one side of the ball, and Rice obviously needs to get it going on the running game. They've made emphasis to that, but yeah, this definitely a kind of blue collar type of feel team coming in from UConn here.
Yes, and this is one of the things that I absolutely like. Like the NFL is great. Everyone loves their fantasy football, but this is one of the best parts about college football because 2 weeks ago, you can play USF where they are going to literally put guys on the sideline, spread you out as far as you possibly can. Nobody's going to be within 10 feet of each other. And then you play UConn, and we're going to see 22 bodies crowded into a phone booth. And it's the same game, allegedly. Mm-hmm. So
you get a look at their receiving game too. Brett Buckman paces them in yards, 261. But yeah, you mentioned the quarterback earlier there as well. Tyquan Roberson played at Penn State, high school teammate and friend with Chris Conti. Coach Bloomgren joked, I forget if it was the show or the presser. He said, he joked, we got to make sure he's not giving him any of the game plan. Maybe that was Brian Smith joined me on the show Monday night. But so Roberson, I mean, you go to Penn State for a reason. You've obviously got some talent, but he's going to be a guy that can really run the football, doesn't throw it all over the yard, and he's not insanely accurate, but he is still very good behind center there for their OC there, Nick Charlton. And I did not shame bad JP. I did not put down their team stats yet. I did on the UConn defense, and we get there in a second. But yeah, this is a UConn offense that is going to want to definitely control that tempo. Of course, who doesn't? Like when are we going to, I guess a few teams like USF, they don't care too much about TOP, but
yeah. And then that'll be interesting. Defense, I think this is the part where I kind of circle because I think the offense, we've kind of seen sparks and moments of life, and they've been able to sustain drives, control the football. They've been able to do, for the most part, what they want to do. It just hasn't happened enough. on offense for UConn, that is. On defense, it's been a struggle, especially, we talked about some of those teams, Georgia State and FIU, maybe surprisingly, they're 7-3 combined between those two teams. And Georgia State's had some good years. FIU has not. So they've scored some points, but the defense, and we saw that in the Utah State game, the reason they had to make that late comeback is because they could not stop anybody. And, given how Rice is continuing to turn over a lot of moving pieces, unfortunately, past couple weeks on the offensive line, that'll be something to look at with this defensive front for UConn. If they can make things interesting, that is, if I'm circling things of how does this game not go according to plan, it starts with the UConn defensive front, that front seven, and being able to gum up the run game and force JT Daniels to be Hercules, which he does more often than not. But man, nobody's perfect. What do you think?
As usual, you're spot on, and we're mind buddies there. And
I don't even pay you to say that.
I can be bought for a fee. Trust me. You're right though, and I think it should not. We should look at also that it's a rarity these days that Jim Mora coordinates his own defense. I guess, if I really put pen to pad, I could think of a few more that do that. And obviously,
I think just defensive minded head coaches are the rare bird.
Yeah.
So there's a handful of those that do coordinate their own defense. I would wager that if you stacked up all 134 FBS teams, I bet you have 100 offensive rooted people running the show.
Yeah, that's probably good arithmetic. I definitely agree with that on the fly. But the actual, you have those offensive coordinators flip at the other side of the ball. I mean, they still have an OC that does the daily, there's a lot of minutia behind, not minutia, there's a lot of work behind the scenes. But Jim Mora, he is the DC of this team. So they're traditional 4-3. And like you said, nothing stands out from a huge statistical swing. It's just when you look at the rushing yards that Rice has not been able to do, just 73 rushing yards a game. UConn is not the best rush defense, so maybe Rice can get something there. But you look at Rice's passing, they're top 13 in the country now in passing, and they're great on fourth downs, but in a top 50 scoring offense as well. That's the JT Daniels effect mixed in there too. But so, can Rice have the big plays like they have been getting? And just the younger guys that have gotten in on the mix too. We heard from Rawson McNeil during the week. And I asked him, I was like, hey, last couple of weeks, man, he just came on, and he was very modest about it and deferential, but he's among the list of young receivers that Daniels has really elevated here. But this is still a UConn team. By the way, Stafford, that guy, almost the middle of the screen there, he will run some in the backfield. He's had 3 touchdowns on the season, so he'll go in on the other side of the ball. They've got Yates, one of their 2 Texans on defense. I know, I guess they have one on special teams, Domino. But yeah, 4-3, and they're going to come after you in that Jim Mora mindset there.
Yeah, I'd point out, you pointed out one guys. I think Jackson Mitchell's the only other guy I wanted to make sure we mentioned by name, leading the team with 47 tackles. And especially, everybody's got your own way to play defense, but when Jim Mora, talk about those linebackers, man. You talk about the guys who can patrol the field and be locked down. It's kind of been a hallmark of what he's done everywhere he's gone. And he's going to be in the middle of the field, and you're going to have to win your one-on-ones, whether that's blocking or the running backs. You're going to have to go through him. So I think it'll be interesting. I think I like, what we've said, where Rice stands on the whole. Is there one other, tidbit or thing or request? They don't have to listen to us. But if there was one thing you say, dear Rice, please, if you would do this, I think it would go well for you to get that win over UConn.
Well, it's the type of game to be able to get the running game going. They'd like to do that, but they've been in the bottom portion of the country trying to do that. The averages the first 2-3 weeks, you're like, but when the schedules start to even out, you don't really worry about, never. It's for goobers like us that worry about the stats and the numbers too much. But I think it would be to run the football
37
a
yards
more.
rushing last week.
Yeah.
To interject,
Yeah.
which is better than 1 the week before, but is bad.
Yeah, they've got to try to get that going. And I just wonder aloud, again, it should be obvious. I don't have any of the game plan insight. They don't say, you know what, Jay, what do you think about this? That goes without saying. But do you just go, okay, you know what? 18, slinging around. Let's go, baby. Just have at it. And coach has been more open the last couple weeks, talking about the analytics of it, and even having a long talk with Dan Greedy. I can't recommend going back on the Owls Insider podcast and hearing the chat with Dan Greedy, director of analytics, who actually I found out later can do the gritty anyway. But yeah, they need to be.
That wasn't your front question?
Yeah, I don't know why I waited to the end with anyway finding out this info, but so it goes two ways. Do you try to grind, establish the run against a defense that has not been bad at stopping the run, but they've not been great? They're kind of in that middle of the pack statistically. Or do you say, hey, 18, go. Just do what you've been doing, because that's obviously worked to the tune of 3 wins in 5 games so far, and could have had a 4th there. But can't wait, man. Can't wait.
3-1 in games that he's finished. 3-0 in games that he's finished against non-top 5 opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Slice and dice however you want. He's been pretty good. We'll see. We hope Rice football is pretty good this weekend. We'll be back. We got more games to go. We're almost halfway through the football season.
How's
I don't
that
like
possible?
it, man.
How's
But
that even?
We got, I don't know. I was at the first basketball practice last week. Baseball kicks off this week for fall ball. It's just, we're rolling, man. We'll stick to football on this show. You can hear us everywhere else. Go check out patreon.com/@theroost. We got all your practice notes and everything there. We'll talk some UConn with an insider coming up into the week. We got lots of stuff going on. Listen to JP in the booth. Watch JP in the booth. I think that's everything. We'll see you guys next week. Unless JP has one more thing.
You do your out cue there.
I'm waiting for the suspense.
Rice fight never dies. You're not going to do that? Oh, East Hartford, not Tampa. Is that what you're waiting for?
We got it all. Thank y'all for bearing with us. We're having a good time. I hope you did too. Until next week, Rice fight.
Never dies, baby. Never dies. East Hartford. UConn is.
Store.